Hello, human animal earthlings. It's good to have you joining us on Radio Free Georgia's In Tune to Nature program. I'm host Carrie Freeman, coming to you in Atlanta in January of 2026. And I'm excited today that we're going to be talking about thousands of school kids around the world getting educated about issues with our food systems, especially with animal agriculture and commercial fishing, and talking with classmates to consider the environmental, health, social, and ethical issues with our current food systems. And the students get to talk about, what they want to do about it and to be part of the solution. Well, these variety of interesting science-backed video lessons on health, society, and or environmental issues are made possible through a nonprofit organization called the Educated Choices Program, with many of the videos in Spanish and with closed captioning in many other languages. This resource is accessible at no expense to any kindergarten through high school classroom teacher and university faculty too, with teacher lesson plans and activities to promote discussion and critical thinking. The Educated Choices Program's vision is a world where conscious eating transforms lives and the planet. So any parents or teens listening today, if you want to connect your teachers with the Educated Choices Program, their website is ecprogram.org. That EC stands for Educated Choices, so ecprogram.org, and all their videos and lesson plans are at the website. To tell us about the Educated Choices Program today is their founder and chief executive officer, Lorena Mucke. Lorena and her team have been developing and improving the award-winning Educated Choices program for over 10 years, reaching more than 3 million people in at least 70 countries. Lorena lives here in Atlanta, so I've had the pleasure of knowing her for many years. Glad to have you back on the In Tune to Nature show, Lorena.
Thank you, Carrie, so much for having me, and thank you to all listeners who like to learn and share cool information.
That's them. Well, tell us a little bit about your background and how you came to start the Educated Choices program.
Sure. I'm originally from South America. I grew up in Bolivia and Argentina. And, those countries are very attached to their food, like every culture. So I pretty much ate whatever my parents fed me. I never really questioned the impact of my food choices until really later on when my parents developed heart disease. And then, of course, physicians started telling them to eat more of a plant-forward diet or more of a plant-centric diet in order to manage that disease. Then I went to, I'm a biologist. I went to Texas A&M. I'm an Aggie. And I graduated as a zoologist. I love animals, all kinds of animals, especially the incredible diversity that Earth contains. And during graduate school, I got to spend time in the subtropical rainforest in Argentina studying monkeys. And that's
Wow.
when I got to see firsthand the incredible, sad deforestation that takes place because of industrial animal agriculture. So
Hmm.
my parents' health, my environmental studies, I put those two together and I thought, how come nobody told me that before? I was in my 20s when I learned this. And I thought, well, someone needs to start telling younger people of what's going on. And that's how I came to start this program. And here we are 10 years later.
I'm so glad you did, Lorena. Well, tell us about the different topics and the titles you offer at the Educated Choices program.
Absolutely. So right now on our digital library, which can be accessed at educatedchoices.org, teachers, community members, parents, teens can access educational packages on different subjects from health, environment, society, and even food tech. Some of the titles that I will mention are very popular among
Yeah.
teachers.
Okay.
One of them is Healthful Eating, which is backed by Doctors for Nutrition, an international group of doctors that focus on diet and disease prevention. We have the environment and modern agriculture, which is probably, it is our second most popular package that teachers access for their students. And it deals with all the issues that our food system has in relationship to the environment. Of course, we have the macronutrient rainbow because, I mean, what parent doesn't want their kids to eat more fruits and veggies?
Yeah.
We have Farm to Flu, which is about the public health of our food system. Our carbon footprint, which was developed in partnership with the Environmental Working Group. And even we have packages for younger kids, ages 8 to 11. We call those series the bite-sized learning series.
Mhm.
And we have two packages for them, Eat for the Earth and Eat for Your Health, which, the name tells what they're about. So those are some of the 21 education packages that we have for teachers and community members to choose from.
Yeah, and some of them are shorter, like maybe 11 minutes, and then some of them go up to maybe like 45 or 50 minutes or something.
Yes, 55 minutes is our longest one,
Okay.
and 10 minutes is our shortest one. And teachers can actually filter by subject, by length, by language, etc. It's
Yeah,
very
and by
user-friendly.
age range. Yeah,
Yep.
that's great. Well, tell us some of the specific reactions that students have, maybe to some of the social or environmental topic videos from the Educated Choices program. How do students react, or what kind of things do they say?
I think the most common feedback we get from students is, how come we didn't know this, right? It's what I asked myself
Yeah.
when I was younger. Even though they are constantly online, that doesn't mean that this information really is available in a very clear way, because misinformation and disinformation is so prevalent right now. So for them to learn about this in a very clear way, an engaging way, in a way that they understand, and also that they can do something about it, is really empowering. So it's why I didn't know about this before. They're very thankful that we not only put in front of them what the problems are, but most importantly, the solutions, right?
Yeah.
Because we know already this generation, young students, are worried about the state of the planet, and what kind of future they're inheriting. But the fact that we give them agency about their health and about what happens to the planet is huge, right? So they're by far very grateful for the information, and because of the feedback that we get, we know that they, on average, students share what they learned with about 15 other people, and
Wow.
that's huge. That's what the power of education is,
Yeah.
right? It's a ripple effect. It's intergenerational. It gets passed down, and that's why the value of education is so important.
Yeah, because then they're going to also talk to their parents and their family about it, and it may change how their family chooses to eat to some extent. I know sometimes unless you're a university student, you don't have as much control over what you're eating at home, and your parents often make those decisions. So I don't know if you ever hear from parents too, or
We
I mean,
do, we
that's kind
do.
of a
Well,
secondary audience of sorts.
more in the past when we had in-person educators, but
Before the
still,
pandemic,
correct,
it's more
correct.
virtual now than it used to be, right? I see.
Exclusively virtual, which has allowed us to erase borders and reach so
Yeah.
many countries. But parents in general are static that their kids are interested in the environment or their health, right? Imagine a teen who suddenly is focused on something that makes the world a better place, or
Yeah.
think that there's something greater than themselves. I think that's huge, and parents know already that kids don't have the best diet. Sometimes not even inside the house, but especially outside of the house with so much junk food.
Yeah.
So I think that they're happy to learn that their kids are being exposed to science-based information that could make them healthier or make the family healthier, right?
Yeah, definitely. And well, what are some examples of what the teachers say about their experiences with using these Educated Choices program food videos in the classroom?
They love the complete packages, that everything is ready for them to use. We know that teachers are underpaid,
Yes.
they're overworked. So for them to get something ready for them to use whenever they want, that aligns to academic standards, including next generation science standards in all 50 states. It's
Oh,
huge, right? And for them to have something that they don't have to recheck if it's science based, if it's credible, if it comes from trusted sources. We do all the work beforehand. So they're very happy about that. And of course, how their students engage with the lessons and how all these education packages promote critical thinking.
yeah. Do you have like a quote or a testimonial you could share with us from
Sure, of course. Let's see, some of those that we love the most is, for example, a teacher who said that after the presentations, they had a few students approach her saying that they learned a lot from it. One said they didn't understand how unhealthy they had been eating, one
wow.
that they had just assumed that it was healthy since the food was coming from their parents, and that they would recommend it to health teachers very much. Another person said, one of the main goals of my students over the past few weeks, few years, is to reduce climate change by reducing food waste, encouraging more plant-based food options and food composting food waste, etc. The Educated Choices program has helped greatly to educate students that their choices have an impact not only on the world, but also on climate change and the animals that live with us. So we get feedback from
Hmm.
teachers all the time, and it's by
Yeah,
far very positive, uplifting, because we reach people where they are, right? We are not telling them what to eat or what to do. We're just putting the information in their hands in a very palatable way and actually finding common ground because we all care about the state of the planet.
yeah.
We all care for youth to get better and healthier. So I think we agree on more than we disagree, right? That's usually the case with humans. We
Yeah.
need to focus on more on what the common ground is.
Yes. And I know that you guys know you're making a difference with the Educated Choices program from the testimonials, and you do surveys and get a lot of feedback. So in case you needed to improve anything, you
Exactly.
have over the years. But I know there's also been some studies that have shown that this is actually an effective way for like your donors, you're a nonprofit, like that this actually does make a difference to start with kids.
Absolutely. We think that proving our efficacy is very important, right? Because as a nonprofit, we rely on that generosity of donors. And of course, they want to know that their money is being used effectively.
Yeah.
We have run many studies throughout the years, longitudinal studies following learners across time to see how their attitudes to food have changed, and also if they changed their diet. But the most important ones have been recently with the University of Cambridge and the University of Edinburgh, in which we actually were able to see that after participating in our program, after watching our videos, students are much more likely to choose sources that come from plants, food choices that come from plants, and of course that means less saturated fat, lower carbon footprint, etc. And that has been huge for us because it means that our program works.
Yeah, because it's hard to get behavioral change. It's not as hard to like get change in terms of awareness. Like, oh, okay, I didn't
Correct.
know this. Now I know this. But still, a lot of times with food, we all know we shouldn't be eating so much sugar, but we still might or whatever, or you shouldn't eat so much meat or whatever. So it's actually a pretty big deal that the students will not only learn about what's healthier for them and the planet, like with plant-based eating, but then they would actually, you know, start, eating differently to enact that, and then they'll influence their social group and their family in a positive way.
Absolutely. Awareness is the first step, right? It's
Yeah,
so important because awareness precedes behavioral change. And sometimes we have to be exposed to something many times
true.
before the change takes hold. So we don't know if we're the first time a student learns about
Yeah.
this or the 100th time. But the fact that in these studies, students exchange their vouchers for foods that were better for the environment in this case because they watch an environmental presentation, it just vindicated us. It's huge, and we hope that that people who are listening to your program understand that the nonprofit world is is important because we really do our best with the money that is entrusted to us.
Yeah.
In this case, where we've made so many changes, we've learned so much in 10 years that we think that we have a very good model that really, really catches students' attention and empowers them to make better food choices.
And you were speaking to that model and the credibility of it and the credibility of the information. So who creates these videos at the Educated Choices program and the lesson plans in terms of like what their expertise is to ensure the credibility of the information and that
Mhm.
it's presented in an age appropriate way?
Oh, absolutely. That's such a great question. All of our education packages are produced in-house. Um, Number one, because it's cheaper, right? And we can make changes as soon as new science, new facts come out. And for us, it's very important to stay up to date with science. In our team, we have amazing researchers, graphic designers, a former teacher, etc. But most importantly, our board of advisors they are the gem, right? We have people who are true experts in every subject that we teach, from environmental science to physicians to health, STEM education, veterinary, etc., veterinarian. So we make sure that before anything comes out, it's being really checked and we make sure that it's credible science. And we only use sources that everyone agrees, or the vast majority of the population, especially teachers, agree that these are legitimate sources, right? So we don't pick and choose. We choose sources that are very well respected worldwide.
That's so important in this age of disinformation, as you said. And
Exactly.
sometimes I notice on your videos, like up in the top corner, it would indicate like where the source was from.
Yes, we do that with every fact that we claim on
Yeah.
the presentations, and also at the very end of the video, all the
That was a
works
reference
cited are
list.
there.
Okay.
And also, of course, in the education packages that teachers can download, and they can contact us at any time, right? One of the beauties about our program is that a teacher can watch anything beforehand,
Yeah.
right? There's everything is transparent.
Yeah. I think that's wonderful. And, that credibility and that veracity with truth is so important, especially, in this day and age. So there's a lot of transparency there.
Yes.
And we talked about like age appropriateness. These Educated Choices program videos are for various age groups of school kids. Can you give us an example of how you change the content for elementary kids versus teenagers? Like, let's say when you're talking about factory farming, which is it's such an ugly and sad industry, and it's so hard to see those images. And sometimes there's blood and there's wounds or sick
Mhm.
animals. So I don't know. How do you distinguish, even for teenagers, you don't want to be too graphic or something. Um, so what are some differences in how you would present, industrial animal farming to elementary kids versus like a high school age group?
That's a great question. First of all, we do not show graphic images
Okay.
in our presentations, because since we don't do things in person, we don't want to show something that we can't be responsible for. We don't want a teacher
Traumatizing.
to have to be consoling a child, for example.
Okay.
So we make sure because we don't need really graphic images to paint a picture of our industrial food system, right?
Yeah.
And I think kids, if they are interested, they can search for it, right? So we make sure that for elementary school kids, our education packages are animated. They use characters that are repetitive, that they can relate to. They're very diverse, culturally, racially, and that is important too, right? Because that's how our world is. And we make sure that we speak at their level, using the words that they would use, that the teachers use to teach, especially about science, about their bodies, about health. For teenagers, we can be a little bit more direct. We use a lot of the graphics that they like. We use music that they are interested in. We use narrators that are also more relatable to them. So definitely everything is age appropriate. But again, we do not show graphic videos or graphic images
So
because we
there's
don't
no
have
like
to.
animals being killed, like the slaughterhouse stuff.
There is one presentation in which we talk about animal agriculture. It's called Food for Thought, but we try to be as the,
Because that one involves the workers too. So you also
it
need to
does.
show that people who work in these slaughterhouses are
Yes.
doing these dangerous and and gross, unappealing jobs that are
Right.
violent. So that, yeah, that's a challenge for that one, isn't
It
it?
is a
Yeah.
challenge, but that's the only one that we
Okay.
do
Yeah.
mention in the summary of the presentation that there's a few graphic images, and we tell
Yeah.
them
Okay.
why. So we make sure that the teacher knows way beforehand if there are any trigger images, and that's the only one out of
Yeah,
21
that's
education packages.
amazing. And even me as a university professor, when I'm showing something, or even if there's elements of sexism or racism or anything that's really traumatizing, I
Yeah,
try if you say beforehand what you're going to do or why you're doing it. And then for me, even at the university level, since I'm working with adults, but I don't want to keep it on the screen very long. So it's like, here's what it
exactly.
looks like, and then like just take it down. Like
Yes,
just to give them a glimpse. Like you say, if people want to see more of this kind of real footage that is graphic and sad, they can. But the point is not to traumatize people. You don't want them crying and leaving the room. You want them to stay engaged in what you're
exactly.
talking about. And like, and I know at the end, you're probably always needing to be like, here's the solutions, because you never want to leave
Mhm.
kids, especially. I know
No,
from teaching my, well, all of my classes really, but my environmental communication class, like we need to end on a what are we doing? What can we do? What's your positive
yes,
vision kind of thing.
absolutely. You know, posing the problem is very important, but even more important is what the solution is and what solutions are within their hand reach, right? Because we don't tell them, well, write your representative. That is very abstract. If we think about it, we eat every day,
Every day, yeah.
every day of our lives. So when they realize that making small food changes, right, dietary changes, can help a lot. When they think about the collective changes that we could make as a species, then they feel very empowered, and they also know that it's not an all or nothing approach, right? Some kids can change what they eat much faster. Some kids have more support from their parents,
Yeah.
others don't. And also the age group, right? But everyone can think about these issues. Everyone can share the information. And I think that all kids eventually, they have some agency when they're at school, when they go out to eat with
Yeah, in the
friends, etc.
cafeteria.
Yeah, yeah. So they feel that they're not trapped just with information. They feel that there's something they can do. And I know it sounds like a cliche, but information is power, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I like that. And you mentioned before the importance of representation and inclusivity, and I can tell from watching some of the videos that you care about being inclusive of different people who are represented in your educated choices videos. And I also see the various languages in addition to English that are offered. Can you tell us about those diversity and accessibility strategies that you have or
Absolutely.
principles?
Because we serve a global um, audience, we try to be sensitive to the different cultures and journeys and walks of life of people that use our program. We try to have captions in as many languages as possible. For now, we have it in 7 languages, the most common ones. But also, we make sure that the translations are not automatically done by us by an app, right? We make sure that the translation is not just linguistic, but is cultural.
Oh,
We try our best not to offend anyone, of
Yeah.
course, to understand that culture is very, very important as far as food choices. And that has to be taken into account. So we make sure of that. And also, of course, that diversity that we see around us, right?
Yeah.
Especially at schools all around the world.
Yeah. Because some of them are offered in Spanish. Is that more, is that the narration in Spanish? So
Yes.
that's the dis like it's either most of them have English narration, but are all of them also Spanish narration or most of them as an
Uh,
alternative?
Most of them are
Most of them,
narrated in Spanish, and we'll keep adding more. And that's because about 80% of the population that we serve is in the US.
yeah.
And we know that the population that speaks Spanish in the US is also a large population.
Right.
But we serve a Hispanic population,
Yeah.
and that's very important to us because we're trying to spread the word.
Yeah. And that's your native language as well.
See.
So you can, yeah, see. So
Yes.
you can really make sure of the cultural appropriateness and not just have some AI translation that
Exactly,
doesn't
exactly.
work. Yeah.
No, it doesn't work. And also, we make sure, talking about AI, that all the images that have to do with what we're teaching, they're not AI generated.
Yeah.
When we talk about facts and deforestation and ocean depletion and contamination, we make sure that those are real images because um, we don't want to ever be discredited for
Yes.
using AI to amplify. There's no need to amplify the problem. The problem is very real. We do use AI for just characters and funny things, but not to talk about facts.
Right. That's important. Well, if you're just joining us on Radio Free Georgia, this is In Tune to Nature, and I'm host Carrie Freeman, talking with Lorena Mucke, the founder and chief executive officer of the Educated Choices program. The mission of this nonprofit is empowering healthy, sustainable food choices through transformative, accessible education. Anyone can access their video programs and corresponding lesson plan resources at the Educated Choices program website, ecprogram.org. Although, Lorena, you said educatedchoices.org. Does that work too? Or
Educatedchoices.org takes listeners directly to our digital library so they can
okay.
just access the education packages. Mhm.
Okay, so that or the ecprogram.org.
Either
Either
one.
works. Okay. Well, let's go a little bit deeper into one of your more popular programs that also relates to the environment, which, relates to our theme here on In Tune to Nature, because you have one that's called the Environment and Modern Agriculture Program. So let me actually play the trailer first, because also for all your videos, there's a little trailer people can watch. And so we'll just listen to that before I have you talk about some of the like learning objectives or activities from that.
Welcome to the Environment and Modern Agriculture, presented by the Educated Choices program. In this presentation, you'll learn how modern animal agricultural practices, which produce some of the most common foods we eat daily, can directly impact our planet and its resources. Issues like climate change and global warming, deforestation and water contamination, polluted oceans and wildlife extinctions. Do you think our food choices might contribute to these environmental concerns? Beef has the biggest carbon footprint out of any food product. It creates 99 kilograms of greenhouse gases per kilogram of beef produced. Why is this? Cattle produce methane through burps and flatulence as a byproduct of their digestive process. This impact may seem trivial when you consider just one cow, but when you think about the total number of cows in the world, they collectively produce a considerable amount of this gas. And as a greenhouse gas, methane is significantly more potent than CO2. After conducting an extensive global review of water pollution from agriculture in 2017, the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations indicated the following. The livestock sector is one of the top 3 contributors to the most serious environmental problems, including water quality degradation at every scale, from local to global. If we all do our part by incorporating more whole food, plant-based options, we can make a positive difference.
And so I was looking at all the visuals that our radio listeners can't see, but anyone could go to the ecprogram.org website and look at this. So tell us a little bit about this environment and modern agriculture program. It's a 44-minute video program. What are the student learning objectives? Because that's what us as teachers, we don't just like randomly throw a bunch of stuff together. There's always a sense like when someone is done with this module, this learning module, they will, be able to. Yeah.
Yes. So the learning objectives of this education package is the students will be able to explain the typical conditions of modern animal agriculture. They'll be able to identify food products with high resource usage and their environmental impacts. They will be able to demonstrate dietary solutions to food-related environmental problems. And lastly, they will be able to demonstrate knowledge of sustainable food options by choosing lower impact foods, such as whole foods and plant-based foods in their everyday lives.
Nice. And then there's a lesson plan that goes along with this. And what does it suggest for teachers to do for this 44-minute program? Like, are they supposed to do everything within an hour? Or does it take all week? Or what are the suggestions?
That is a great question. So what we do is we give them enough material that they can use over several days if they choose to do so. Some teachers only show the video, other teachers use just a quiz, other teachers use the guided prompts, other teachers use actually the lesson plans. So in this specific package, we offer a 3-day lesson plan in case teachers want to do it. In all of them, we suggest activities that they can do, whether it's research or group activities, art, I mean, you name it. But mostly is to encourage critical thinking, facilitate comparison between different foods, guide some structured debates, even activate prior knowledge, right? And apply it to what they learned from this presentation. But it's made, by teachers for teachers, pretty much.
I like that because also the more that students engage, and it's not just kind of passively listening, even if they're interested in something, but then what are they going to do? Are they going to talk about this more? Are they going to write about it? Like the more senses and the more time they spend on it, the more memorable, and useful it's going to become. So, can you give us some examples of recommended activities and discussion prompts for teachers that are related to this environment and modern ag program video?
Sure. So in this presentation, we encourage different activities. For example, one of them is to compare and contrast foods. So, for example, we say encourage that the teacher to ask their students about their last meal, something that they can remember.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then look at the nutrition of label, or we give them different websites where they can check that and present their findings, right, as a chart, as an infographic or a visual graphic. And that way they can visually see and compare the different foods based on what they learned and their impact on the environment. That's one. Another one that we encourage is an art and awareness campaign, right? Students can design posters, infographics, social media style campaigns. Each project can highlight one environmental impact, whether it's ocean depletion or deforestation or endangered species or water pollution, etc. Students can work individually or they can work as a group, but that's one of the most popular ones. Another one is a student outreach project, right? Students are given a research project. It can be climate change, land and water use, ocean acidification, commercial fishing or bycatch. And then they create a brochure, a slideshow, a poster, or a short presentation that explains the issue and introduces more sustainable food options. This specific activity, we find that it reinforces communication skills and synthesis, right? They're able to grab everything that they researched and put it in a little package to share with others.
That's awesome. That's sounds like what I do in my environmental communication class, which is a communication class that I sometimes teach at Georgia State University. well, their final project, it doesn't have to be on food, but any environmental issues. But there's always been a group that has chosen a food topic.
Interesting.
They some kind of outreach, whether they create a little documentary or show a documentary on campus and lead a discussion, or they do some tabling, or they're doing some social media campaign,
Mhm.
it is nice for them to use their creativity. Does anybody ever share that with you all? Because this is all happening and like you're putting stuff out there, and sometimes you
Yeah.
may not see what all the students are actually producing.
Absolutely. Some teachers share with us. They send us postcards, pictures, etc. of the projects. We even received a beautiful painting done by a middle school class on this subject,
Oh,
and it was so beautiful that they shipped it to us.
wow.
As a thank you for having such an impact. We also host a contest, student contest twice a year. And so there's a lot of submissions that
Oh,
are
great.
very artistic or media oriented. I mean, it's incredible what students can do nowadays, even on their phones, right? It blows my
Yes.
mind.
Yeah, they can create so many great infographics. Yeah, and
Incredible.
then you can post some of that on your social media sites,
Yes,
right?
exactly.
What are some of your handles for the Educated Choices program? And if someone's like trying to follow you on Instagram or like, um,
Oh, I am so bad at that.
yeah,
But I can check. Just give me a
yeah,
second in the
yeah.
meantime. So on Facebook, we are Educated Choices Program.
Okay,
So that's,
Educated Choices program on Facebook.
and on Instagram, we are Educated Choices.
Okay, so at Educated Choices.
Uh-huh. And finally, Pinterest is very important for teachers. That's where they get a lot
Oh,
of their information. We
Pinterest for
get
teachers.
a lot of teachers visiting our Educated Choices program on Pinterest. Is Educated Choices program, and of
Okay.
course we're on LinkedIn, but I don't think that's that
I didn't,
important for
yeah.
faculty and students.
Okay. And I know, to wrap up here, I know you have a Kickstarter fundraiser to develop your latest Educated Choices program video on the need to protect ocean life, and it's going to be called See the Impact, with C
Yes.
spelled like the ocean, SEA. So tell us about that, the See the Impact video you're creating.
We're super excited about this video because even though we touch on the ocean a little bit here and there through other education packages, we've never ever devoted time to exclusively the oceans. So we are already putting this education package together. We're almost at the end of our goal, our fundraising goal, and we're wasting no time, right?
Yeah.
Because we want to already start. But mostly it'll help students or learners, how that's how we call people who use our materials, to identify and explain the impacts of food production on the oceans, including the health of the oceans and all the species that live in them. So they will be able to understand how we can positively or negatively affect the oceans and discover ways that all this knowledge that we're going to put together in this package can create ocean protectors, and we can restore the health of the oceans a little bit. I think we all are in awe of the majestic creatures that live in them, and how without the oceans we could not breathe, right? For example, they produce most of the oxygen, and
Yeah.
so many great things about the ocean. But this education package definitely will connect these impacts to everyday food choices and empower learners with realistic solutions, highlighting the low impact foods and the importance of not just individual action, but also systemic policy change that can protect our oceans and all of our ecosystems in the future.
Yeah, especially as they're like a shared ecosystem. The oceans aren't kind of owned by any, at least off the
Yes,
coast. Once you get off the coast, they're not quote unquote owned by any particular nation. And so we all have to work together through
exactly.
some kind of notion of international law to protect, to protect the animals and the whole ecosystem there.
Yes, well
Well,
said.
Lorena, as a wrap-up question, what can any interested listeners do to get involved with or support the Educated Choices program we've been talking about today?
Of course, we would love to have more supporters and more funders. As a nonprofit, we rely again on the generosity of people, but also spread the word.
Yeah.
Visit our website, educatedchoices.org, learn about the impact of food system education, and start conversations with everyone. Think about every time you sit at the table, think about all the connections between that food and the natural world. And I think just thinking about those things helps people understand that we have a lot of power, and that's a beautiful thing because power can be really restoring.
Yeah. Right. It helps you from feeling helpless and sad in the face of so many problems.
Yes, definitely. And I think that the news don't have to be so sad. I think part of education is hope, is to give hope.
Yeah.
And that's what we do. We talk about what we can do and how we can turn the tide. And I think young people they are the future. And they're very resilient and very stubborn. And I think we need to use that stubbornness, that challenging nature for good things. And I think they're proving to be our best allies.
That's wonderful. Yeah, I see as a professor myself, I see a lot of hopefulness in the students in terms of their concerns
Yes,
about society and the environment and other animals. Like they're not just kind of passively accepting, mistreatment and pollution and all of these things. And they want
exactly.
us to have collective solutions that help everyone and not just like one group of people or just animals without humans. And so I think, I know we're placing a lot of maybe pressure on them, but all generations need to be
Exactly.
involved. But I do think the younger generation is really kind of putting all this together and looking at it almost from like a One Health perspective of like what hurts humans also hurts our ecosystems, also hurts other animals, and vice versa. Like that we like, and so our food choices impact all of those areas, which is what your programs show, the public health, the worker conditions, the air and water quality, and then just our own individual bodies, and then the bodies of the, wild and domesticated animals involved.
Yeah.
So I'm very excited about what you're doing. Yeah.
Thank you. Yes, I think to summarize, this food impact education is like an octopus with many tentacles. It touches so many areas of our life.
Yeah.
And even though youth have a lot of responsibility, I think the older generations also need to think about their legacy, what
Yeah.
we're leaving behind. And I think that's very important too. And that's why we have supporters of all ages backing up
Yeah.
what we do, right? Backing us up.
Well, that's the end of our show, and I want to thank you, Lorena Mucke, for being
Thank
with
you.
us on Radio Free Georgia's In Tune to Nature program. Thanks for the work you and your educators do at the Educated Choices program to empower millions of students around the world to make healthy, sustainable food choices through your transformative, accessible education.
Thank you, Carrie, and thank you all for listening.
Yeah. And to our listeners, thank you for tuning in to In Tune to Nature, broadcasting every Wednesday at 6 p.m. Eastern Time, online at WRFG.org and on Atlanta radio station 89.3 FM. I record from Atlanta in the foothills of the Appalachian Mountains in the Muskogee Creek territory and former range of the Red Wolf, now home to some coyote families and million squirrels. You can access action items, news, and podcasts on the show's website, wrfg.org/intune to nature. The views and opinions expressed on the show do not necessarily reflect those of WRFG, its board staff, or volunteers. I'm one of those volunteers. I'm host Carrie Freeman, asking you to please support independent, non commercial media like Radio Free Georgia at wrfg.org. And remember to take care of yourself and others, including other species. Thank you for listening. Cheers.